These are my rankings for every book that I read in 2023. Let's jump into it. Hello everyone, my name is Marsh, and we're going to be ranking every book I read in 2023 or did not finish or is currently reading. And so I'm going to be going through each book one by one, give you like a minute on what I thought about the book, no spoilers, and then we'll go ahead and see where it ranks. So let's go ahead and jump right into the tier list. Also, side note, sorry for the face cam setup. We're a little low tech for the tier list. It's a little easier on this computer. Okay, so we have Tier Maker pulled up here. We'll just go through them one by one and cover everything. So the first one here that popped up is 20th Century Boys. I have 2 here because it's currently in progress, but I have completed the first 3 volumes. So this is volume 4, I could tell by the cover. This is currently in progress, we'll just put it there. And then the first 3 volumes. So in terms of where I would rank the first 3 volumes of 20th Century Boy, I would probably give it a high B to a low A currently. We'll go ahead and put it in high B. Reason being, it's all the intrigue and things are set up and things were getting going and things are starting to get crazy and happening and all the cool stuff's happening with it. But it's a 22 volume series, so it's a long way to go. But it's a good start, but it's not mind-blowing currently at the moment. Next book is All Systems Red, the first book in the Murderbot Diaries. To be honest, this one was kind of like a C for me. I don't know if it was just too much expectations going in. A lot of people hype this one up as like the Murderbot Diaries being so good. They're so amazing. They're such great novellas. They're okay. I enjoyed them. They were a good audiobook I listened to since they're easy and they're quick. So the first one is a C for me, I would say. Next, this is All Tomorrows. This is a short story that is published online, and there's plenty of audiobooks on it on YouTube. I recommend you take a look at it. I also have a review for it that I'll put in the description of this video. But it's great sci-fi. It is basically evolutionary sci-fi going into the future, seeing what happens when we humans evolve based on different conditions, such as if a planet had 10,000 times the gravity, there's a planet where the humans look like pancakes because the gravity has smashed their bodies and they've learned to evolve that way. So it's essentially going through the evolution of humans over billions and billions of years. And it's quite, I would say, horrific. It's kind of like a sci-fi horror, evolutionary, body type of stuff. It's a very interesting read. I would actually give it an A. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's not going to be the top of A, but it's very interesting. I would highly recommend it. Next, we have Apology by Plato. I started dipping my toe into philosophy this year, so there'll be a few of those on here. Apology was interesting. It's not like anything crazy amazing. I'll probably put it in C, but I'll put it above All Systems Red, just because I wasn't in love with it. It's interesting, and since we're at it as well, there's one more Plato, Euthyphro, which is just before Apology. So basically before Socrates goes to his trial, and then his trial happens. It's interesting. I'll continue on with Plato. It's a lot where people say it's a good place to start. Now that I'm reading more philosophy and currently in between certain stuff, I don't know if it's the best place to start, but it does give you a foundation. But Euthyphro, I'll put it up there. I think I enjoyed Euthyphro maybe a little better than Apology. So we'll do that for now for the C tier. Artificial Condition, book 2 of Murderbot Diaries. I like this one better than All Systems Red. It's probably my favorite of them. Probably low B for me. So we'll go ahead and put it there. The first DNF of the year was Beyond Good and Evil. So this is DNF/TBC to be continued. I am going to continue on with it. It's just, I don't think I was ready in my philosophy journey to pick up this book. To be honest, I picked it up because the name. I like the name Beyond Good and Evil. It sounds interesting. I didn't know what to expect going into it, and I was trying to break it down to fully understand it. But I think probably the more digestible approach is to just read it through once without taking notes and be like, okay, that was something. And then maybe listen to a video to explain it and then go back through and take notes. I got about like 20% through it taking notes, and I just didn't go back to it. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just a very big challenge. Next, we have Dark Age. I'll probably put this high A at the moment. I am a big Red Rising fan, so Dark Age was a good entry for me coming into Lightbringer. Really enjoyed it. Very brutal, very dark, as the title says. Very intense. I also have a review for that. I'll put it in the description as well. All the books I have reviews for, I'll put in the description in case anyone wants to check those out specifically. But I love this book, where it's going in the series, where it ended, and how it leads into the next book. Deadhouse Gates, this is currently in progress. I have like 50 pages left, so I'm gonna finish it this week, but I didn't finish it in 2023, so it's not gonna be on there. But I didn't finish it in 2023, so it's not gonna be on the finished part of it. I like where it's going so far, though. It's probably gonna be an A for me, maybe low A. I haven't got like that S tier with Malazan yet, but I'm enjoying what the series is doing and everything that's happening. I haven't finished the book yet, though, so it could pop up to an S. You never know. Okay, Exit Strategy. I'll put this one with All System Red. Kind of indifferent about it. Feeling the same way. It's okay. I found with Murderbot Diaries, the relationship between the main character and other robots I find more interesting than the human characters. So whenever the stories are more focused on the human characters, it tends to weigh it down for me. Versus like artificial, whatever. Versus the second book is focused on the main character and a lot more time with other robots. Fourth Wing, this is in progress. I'll finish this in like a week or so. I'm not a smut reader. I didn't know it was that coming in. I'm definitely going to have a review for it because it's interesting. My first time reading smut. I didn't know it was. I just knew, oh, this book's getting a lot of hype, so let me check it out. I like dragons. We'll see what happens. So, pretty interesting. With that, I'll give you my thoughts later on that, though. Frugal Wizard's Hand Guide. To be quite honest, this is probably bottom to C for me. At the time, I'm like, oh, this is okay, but it's not. It's the worst of the secret projects, in my opinion. It's not horrible. It's just unoffensive, I guess. It doesn't do anything special. It's nothing special. And so it goes there. Gardens of the Moon. I'll put this top of A at the moment. It didn't reach an S tier for me. I did like it. In fact, I think I kind of like it more than Deadhouse Gates, actually, which is an unpopular opinion. I know a lot of people like Gardens of the Moon. It's like one of the least favorite in the Malazan series. I don't know if it's just the way it's written in terms of things, or I think it's the characters, because there's certain characters in Deadhouse Gates I don't care for, and we spend a lot of time with them. But it could change. We'll see how it goes. But I really like Gardens of the Moon. Gathering Storm. I'll give... It's top of A. I'm going to save S tier for like the cream of the crop books for me. So Gathering Storm was great. Probably my favorite of the ending of Wheel of Time if we're looking at all the books. I hyped up Memory of Light when I first read it and did a review, but I probably should have waited a few weeks before doing a review on it. But I did have a lot of emotions after finishing it. But now looking back at it and looking at some of the critiques, there are issues with Memory of Light. But Gathering Storm's great. I loved what happened in it, where it went, how it completed certain arcs. And I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll just say I think it's the best of the last three or the Sanderson Wheel of Time books. Okay. The first S tier and my favorite book, probably ever after reading it, is the first book in Hyperion. I haven't read the other ones yet. I'm going to pick up the second book fairly soon after I finish what I'm currently reading. But this book broke me, made me cry, the writing was amazing. Some of the things, the ideas, revelations that happened. I've never cried while reading a book before this book, which is partly why it became one of my favorite books of all time, because the specific emotion it instilled in me during one of the parts of the book was something I've never experienced before. So I have a lot to thank for this book. Even if I don't like the rest of the series, this will still remain one of my favorite books probably of all time, if not my favorite. So definitely S tier. Great book for the year of 2023 for me to read. And I would recommend it, but I know not everyone likes it. But for me, I really enjoyed it. Next book is I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream. This one's going to go next to All Tomorrows. So it's another short story. It's like about a group of people that are trapped in a supercomputer named AM. I did sort of a video on it here. This is like a conceptual video after I read it on the idea of self-sacrifice and how that's portrayed in media. It got me thinking a lot, enough to make my own video about the topic of self-sacrifice. And so it's very thoughtful for the short time it's with you, and it definitely leaves a mark. Would highly recommend it. It's short. You can finish it in a day. It's like an hour, maybe 2 hours audiobook, depending like which one you look at. Highly recommend the short story. It's great. iRobot, Isaac Asimov. This is probably bottom of B for me. This is my first entry into Isaac Asimov. I've seen the movie as a child. Movie is nothing like the book. I don't know what's up with Will Smith and doing adaptations, because I know he did I Am Legend as well, and I've heard it's nothing like it. I haven't read I Am Legend yet. I plan to eventually, but that one, it's something else. I don't know how to explain it or what's going on with it, but the book itself, the book is good. It's a collection of short stories, and it basically puts you in the universe and explains what the 3 laws of robotics are in Isaac Asimov's universe. and it's interesting. There's a lot of like moral conundrums, and it's interesting to see how the robots listen to the 3 laws and how it pertains to each and every robot, and how people think it's breaking the laws in certain situations, but it's not. It's a very interesting read. Not amazing, but I would still recommend it if you want to get into Isaac Asimov. I haven't read the rest of his stuff, so I can't recommend it, but I like where it started. Now, this is going to be a very unpopular opinion. Jade War, I got in the D tier. This book just does not connect with me to the point where I do not think I'm going to read book number 3 in the series. Unless someone really, really motivates me to read it or pick it up. I had low feelings about book number 1 as well. It's just very hard to get through for me. I don't know what it is. I think it's the pacing, because everything in the story conceptually is fine, but it just doesn't connect with me as a reader. I don't know what it is. I think it's the gangster mafioso type of story. I've never really been into that type of story, and so it just doesn't fall down my particular alley, and it's just not for me. It's not a bad book, but it's definitely not for me, and it took away from a lot of my reading time because I do not like DNFing books, and so I was stuck on it for a while. Next book is Knife of Dreams by Robert Jordan. I think it was a good entry for the final Robert Jordan book of The Wheel of Time. There were certain good things that happened in it. The beginning was slow, but it built up. The prologue was good though, and it ended on a positive note, and it's good to see that he went out on a bang and he didn't fizzle out after the slog. So it's good to see he came out of the slog and still had it in him to bring a higher quality to Wheel of Time, because it is definitely better than all of the slog. I don't know if it's better than the first 6 books per se, but it definitely came out of the slog, and it might have been positive going forward if unfortunately he didn't pass away, but that's where it ranks for me, is the low B tier currently. Lightbringer. I'm gonna get this top of A. I don't know if it's quite S for me. I'm saving S for like my favorite books of the year. But Lightbringer, I loved where it went for the penultimate book of Red Rising. The portrayals and the mirroring that it has to other stories, where it went with the characters, the protagonist slash antagonist that we follow. Just a great entry for Red Rising, and I'm excited to see where the final book goes. Okay, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, currently in progress. I'll finish this in like 4 days. I just read 1 chapter a day, basically, so I'm gonna finish this in like 4 days. I'll make a video on it as well. It's basically self-help for men. That's what the premise of the video is going to be, because I think that's what philosophy basically is. Since you don't see a lot of men picking up like the normal self-help books, but they'll read Meditations, and that's basically what it is. He's telling you to live your life in a certain way and to follow certain morals and things like that, and don't listen to the outside perspective. Focus on yourself, do your job, be a good citizen, basically. There's other tenets to it. I'm not in full review mode, so I'm not going to go over it all, but I like where it's going so far. Memory of Light. I'll put this, yeah, that's about right there. So Memory of Light, like I said, I overhyped probably after I first read it. Looking back, there's a lot of issues with it, but I still thoroughly enjoyed the book, and I like the ending, even though the ending is controversial. Specifically for the reasoning I like the ending is why I like it, but I'm not going to go into why that is for spoiler reasons. If you want, you can check out my review, but I like where it goes. There are issues with it, but it's a good way to close this epic series of Wheel of Time. Cormac McCarthy, No Country for Old Men. I'll put this top of B. So, No Country for Old Men. I've never watched the movie, and I wanted to get back into McCarthy. I have read The Road when I was in high school as like one of our main books, and it's probably my favorite book in high school, which is the reason I wanted to get back into him. And really, I wanted to get to Blood Meridian, but I didn't want to jump directly into Blood Meridian before picking back up some of his other books. So No Country for Old Men was like my entry into it, and it's a nice thriller. It's quick paced. I think the ending went on a bit too long. It could have probably ended like 2 chapters earlier than it did, maybe 30 pages. There's a certain point I think would have been perfect for the ending, and kind of just kept going, and I wasn't interested at that point. But other than that, it's a good little thriller. The movie's really good as well. It's an award-winning movie. Would highly recommend it. It has one of the most interesting looks at a antagonist slash villain, taking this like psychopathic type of character and putting it in a different way where they have a set standard that they follow. I would recommend just for that antagonist specifically, to be quite honest with you. Next is Rogue Protocol. This is going to go with the other books. I think I probably liked it a little better than All Systems Red. and Exit Strategy. It's fine. I'm just not in love with the series. Like, I don't know if I'll continue unless someone's like, oh, it's amazing, you need to continue. I know there's a novel-sized book, but it didn't get the best reviews, so it leads me to be like, I don't really want to pick that up. And I've also heard her other book about, like, her other fantasy book, people didn't review the best either, so it seems kind of like this novella section is the best for her. I don't know if she does better in, like, the novel section, but who knows? I may pick it back up with the adaptation coming, but we'll see. Next is Spice and Wolf. I mean, Spice and Wolf's always in progress for me. I'm on, like, volume 9 or something. I finished 3 volumes this year. This is going to still be in progress. I probably won't finish it next year. It's probably going to be like 2 years before I finish it. I'm taking my time with it. I enjoy it. It's nostalgic for me. I watched the anime when I was younger. One of my favorite animes, and the characters. I love the relationship between Holo and, oh my god, I'm blanking on the other character's name. I'll put it on the screen over here. But I love their relationship and their, like, the relationship and banter towards each other. And it's one of my favorite things, and it's just a very homey, nostalgic series for me that I will read a few volumes every year until I reach the end. Okay, The Blood Mirror by Brent Weeks. This is going to be another D. This hurts me because the first 3 books were great. They're all probably A tier for me in the Lightbringer, and I've heard people complain about The Blood Mirror, and wow, they're right. Nothing really happens in it. It's basically like puberty, the book kind of thing, and a lot of the issues in the previous books that people talked about with certain characters being childish and the way he writes certain scenes in terms of like sexualization and things like that really popped up in this book. There is a certain medical condition they're tackling, which I think is good to tackle and portray, but he let it overtake the book. I think he got a concept for this medical condition to where he made it basically the climax is them getting over this medical condition. Because there's no real climax to this book. It just happens. It would have probably been better if you just made the book like 2,000 pages and ended it with the last 2. I'm about halfway through the last one. I'm listening to it on audiobook. Quality has gone down since the first 3 books. And just a disappointment because the first 3 I loved. And I wish it stayed how it was. But it's not horrible. I can see people definitely liking it. It's just such a step down that it's disappointing. This is The Count of Monte Cristo. I'll put this top of B for Count of Monte Cristo. I'm not in love with it. I watched an anime adaptation years and years ago before I was a reader, and so I knew the basic story beats, but the anime adaptation starts where they start in Italy, so I didn't get the beginning, so I really love the beginning because that was stuff you don't really get in the anime that I watched, but the rest of it was just more seeing how the book handles it versus what I already watched, and it's definitely worth reading. The size itself is intimidating alone, but if you can get over that, it definitely reads very quickly, has a nice pace, and every chapter is there for a specific reason, and it sets up certain things, and it leads to certain revelations when certain things happen. Shadow of the Torture. This is my only other S tier for the books I read in 2023. Now, it's very controversial because the main character is not a good person. But, I mean, I don't personally have an issue with portraying main characters in a bad light if they're not a good person. It's more, how's the story told and things of that sort, because that is reality in terms of gray characters or just evil characters in general. But the way this world is crafted and the way that Gene Wolfe writes is just something I've never experienced before. It's hard to explain, but basically Shadow of the Torturer, you're reading it like a fantasy book, and it's actually a sci-fi. And the thing is, it's about a person's autobiography that has been found by historians and translated, and then Gene Wolfe has translated the historians' translations into our current language, but the words don't translate because we don't have a full dictionary of what it was back in the day. So it's been translated over and over and over to the point where how things are described don't meet the eye. So it reads very, very interestingly to where the character at one point is talking about a portrait they're seeing of a man holding a banner, a stiff banner, and he has armor with a gold visor, and you're like, oh, so he's talking about a knight holding like a flag. But when you look into it further, what he's actually talking about is the moon landing on Earth. So it's actually a picture of an astronaut with a gold visor holding the American flag. So it reads like a fantasy, but it's really a sci-fi. And if you dig into it and really look at what's being told, all the revelations and things that happening just like blow your mind. I have a review on it. This is one I highly recommend you read if you're into sci-fi fantasy, but trigger warning, the main character is sort of a womanizer, and so that is probably the biggest complaint people have, but the writing by Gene Wolfe is just out of this world. Enough of that though. Towers of Midnight. Towers of Midnight was okay for me. I wasn't in love with it. I would probably put it right there in B tier. It's okay where it went, what it was doing. It set up things for the final book. It was a setup book. So there's certain like plots that end, but if you're not in love with those characters, you may not be in love with this book specifically. Okay. Ending it strong here. Tress of the Emerald Sea. This will be top of A for me, just below Lightbringer. Tress was great, the first secret project, but my favorite out of all the secret projects. It's a nice Princess Diary take on a story, and I just really enjoyed what Brandon Sanderson did with this, how he changed up his prose, and how he handled the comedy and overall theme and feeling and tone of this story. I really loved where it went. And then we have Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. This probably just below Tress for me, and so it's great, but it's not. I had issue with the ending. People explain it. One thing about Cosmere fans, they explain it and they're like, oh, it works in the Cosmere magically, so it makes sense. I get it, Cosmere fans, it works, but you gotta take, like, not everyone is a Cosmere expert, and it's okay to criticize an ending. So I had an issue with the ending, but I love the overall love story, what they did, and his take on Your Name, which I didn't know about, but I did say it reminds me of Your Name when I read it originally. But I just didn't like the ending, which is why it's below Tress for me, but I love everything else overall, which is why it's still high in A. Since we're talking about those, I forgot to put Sunlit Man here, but I did read Sunlit Man. I wasn't in love with it. Probably goes bottom of A for me, so I'll slot it in the images right here on the screen so you see it. But yeah, Sunlit Man was okay. It was interesting, but also confusing in the sense that it's progressing forward in the Cosmere, and if you haven't read the entire Cosmere, you may not understand everything fully. I've only read a majority of Stormlight except Rhythm of War and first Mistborn Era 1 and Warbreaker, so I haven't read everything in the Cosmere. So I think if I read everything in total, I'd probably like it a lot more, but currently it's bottom of A for me. And finally, War and Peace. This goes in the DNF / to be continued section. I didn't dislike it. I actually enjoyed certain parts of the writing. It's very long, and I think the war parts are the parts I don't like, because he'll go into a lot of like history about the war and specific things happening, and that's where I got kind of lost, and I just went away from it, didn't come back to it. I was like 80% done or 70% done. I was like over 800 pages in, so I'll pick it back up eventually where I was and just finish it off. But the peace parts are the parts in the actual nobility and with the people I really enjoy. It's just the war aspect. The way he talks about war sometimes I don't enjoy. And not like these stories from person to person when he gets analytical and starts talking about the historical facts. And he'll go on like exposition of talking about it for a long time. Those are the parts I don't like, because it's like reading a history textbook to me. And that's the parts I got stuck on. But other than that, I love his actual characters from one spot to another. How he describes characters, and he'll use certain descriptions like comparing their face to like a cat, and how it explains what exactly their face looks like and what you can see in that character. So he does a good job at visualizing the scene for you and setting up those relationships. But yeah, this is my tier ranking for 2023. Tell me how I'm totally wrong, or tell me if you agree with me in certain things. What would you change? What would you not have in certain places? And what were some of your favorite reads of 2023 as well? Feel free to put them in the comments, and I might end up reading them next year if they were that good. I mean, I'm always open to suggestions. Other than that though, thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.